Hello YouTube, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard, and this is the Solar Flash update for July 21st, 2023. If you're on my side of the world, it's already July 22nd, but I was too tired yesterday, so I didn't get this video up. So we're going to be talking about, there's a lot of, from my perspective, everything is seeming to head for a pileup. There seems to be so much energy building up and so many things happening in so many different places. It's like an explosion of information and awareness. We'll talk about that. So somebody asked me recently somewhere what I thought about the date September 23rd, 2023. Oh, sorry. I put 03, but I meant 23. 9/23/23. And I hadn't heard about that, but apparently in movies for decades, that number has been associated, especially the date September 23rd, has been repeated over and over again in movies having to do with some kind of apocalypse. We are currently undergoing a massive solar storm that is hitting the Earth. It's not as big as some of the earlier ones, but there still might have already been some northern lights in places. There is a massive, seemingly expose of Hollywood elites like Oprah and Ellen and a bunch of others who may be involved into some darker things, and it's exploding. It's exploding all over the internet. We have a star close by which is called Betelgeuse, which is actually pronounced Betelgeuse, and that star may be going supernova. Question is it going to go supernova soon? If so, then it will be seen in the sky and it will be as bright as the full moon. The mainstream media is going crazy attacking the movie Sound of Freedom, which is about helping to rescue children from child trafficking. And for some reason, the mainstream media is attacking it and associating it with QAnon, which is quite interesting. And it makes me wonder about the adreno. Is that stuff real? And the mainstream media is still censoring the true UFO government program, which is, again, you are being told by the mainstream media that there's one whistleblower who's coming forward saying that the government has a secret crashed alien retrieval program and that they have alien bodies and that aliens have been known to kill humans. When what's really going on, that for some reason you can guess, mainstream media is not talking about what's really going on, where hundreds and thousands of whistleblowers, both in the military and in the tech industry, are saying that the military has a secret UFO program where we have the ability to have already, we've been using flying saucers, anti-grav machines faster than the speed of sound, faster than the speed of light, and that we have technologies that are far beyond anything that we could put into Star Trek or Star Wars, and we've had this for 70 years, and that is what they're trying to blow whistles on. But you can only imagine that has been changed into something completely different that is still going on. So there's going to be some hearing coming up, and I will be very surprised if the real actual truth comes out. So far, it's going according to plan, which is that you're being set up to be afraid of aliens, and you are being told that aliens are going to attack and invade. All right, so let's take these one at a time. Ascension or Apocalypse, September 03. So somebody asked me about that, and the only reason that I took that even slightly seriously is because I can't escape the feeling that there's something big coming, perhaps right around that time. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, things are building up. As you know already, we're on the verge of World War III. Now, I mean, just recently, just yesterday, I'm hearing these revelations that there are something like 20 audio tapes of Joseph Biden and his son Hunter Biden pressuring a Ukrainian energy company to give them $10 million. And this is the same president who just sent cluster bombs over to fight in Ukraine. And so if there is a financial connection between the head of the United States, who is promoting this war in Ukraine against Russia, that means that what you've been told is a lie. We're not going over there to save the poor Ukrainians. We're actually helping to line the pockets of the President of the United States and creating a war so that he can make money off of resources, if that's true. We've also got some very, I don't know, it's just getting intense. As you know, Russia and China are starting to snuggle up next to each other, and that's literally because they're being squeezed in on both sides. The United States is doing military exercises just offshore of China. We have bases surrounding China. China is just doing little bitty things to say, hey guys, back off, and that's being portrayed on the news. And just about every night on the news, you hear something about war with China, and it's talked about as though it's just normal everyday stuff. And at the same time, Sweden and Finland have both joined NATO. They both used to be completely neutral. And so now you've got this pincer movement, and you know, all that needs to happen is just a tiny little thing has to happen, and then World War III will be shoved down your throats. We've got that going on. We've got this stuff going on with the elites are being revealed in all kinds of crazy ways. So point is that 9/23/23 has the deep state known something? Now, I put it on here towards the end, but you know, the adreno, you know what that is? Supposedly some very powerful drug that is taken from human chemistry, and there's an association with that, and child trafficking. I won't go into any details, and I haven't paid any attention to any of that for a long time, except that the more that is revealed about the worldwide child trafficking that's been going on, it's starting to line up with the conspiracy theories. You know, look, you guys know me. I don't have an agenda. I am not into conspiracy theories. I never have been. The only times that I've changed my mind is when I have either personally experienced something or the evidence is overwhelming. I don't have a need to buy into any of it. I've never needed that. But the evidence is becoming overwhelming. And, you know, I put a link in here in the chat, but there's a video from the 1998 movie. We're talking 25 years old, long before anybody ever heard of this. There's a line in that movie about adrenochrome. What? Of course, I watched that movie in 1998, and of course that word just flew right past my head. It was a fictional movie. I'd never heard of that. They made up some drug, and people are talking about it now. So either somebody took that from that movie and has created some false nonsense out of that, which has persisted, or the evidence of what seems to be going on a global scale with children seems to now have some strong, I mean, I want to give you some evidence, but again, I'm, you know, YouTube is very, they'll block you for, you know, sneezing the wrong way. So you're more than welcome to do your own research on any of this. I'm not here to specifically promote anything, but I find it very interesting that all this stuff is coming about now. So it makes me wonder, is this date of September 23rd 2023. Is this the date that we achieved the ascension? Now, in movies, and I put a link in there as well, and again, many of these movies I've seen, and of course the date passes me by because, 10, 20 years ago I didn't care about any of it. But it's interesting how often this date of September 23rd and September 23rd, 2023 is in movies predicting the end of the world, some massive, major catastrophe that's going to end the world. Now, what I'm finding, sorry, I got distracted. I saw a text, a chat thing come up. It distracted me, so I have to block it so I don't get distracted by your chat text. What was I saying? So this date of September 23rd, 2023, the reason why this is very interesting to me is because it's becoming more and more clear that there is a deep, dark secret in Hollywood that it makes sense. If there is this cabal of very rich people who own, as we've seen, own all of mainstream media, all of the news, that own YouTube, that own, that have tried to own Twitter and Instagram and everything else. And of course, there's talk about Instagram being set up so that these child traffickers can use Instagram to find kids. That if that is true, then we go back to something very interesting that I've been talking about for a while, which is the Looking Glass Project. Very quickly, the Looking Glass Project is something that was talked about by a supposed whistleblower way back in, I believe it was even in the late 90s. I can't remember how far back, but it was way back there. Late 90s, early 2000s, some guy came out and said that the deep state owns this piece of technology that is very ancient, that goes all the way back to Sumeria, that has been used by empires for thousands of years, and it has to do something with light and mirrors. Now, if you're not familiar with it, please go and research something called the Kozyrev mirror. This is a real thing. Kozyrev mirror, Kozryrev, Kozyrev mirror. Kozyrev was a scientist, he was a Russian scientist who simply created a round mirror, and if you sat inside of a round mirror, it would bend the light in such a way that it would create an electromagnetic bounce back field. The light would do something, bouncing back off of itself, that you would be able to do all kinds of things like look into the past, look into the future, tap into other realms. Extraterrestrials, higher dimensional beings would, like a portal, would show up, and as soon as the Russian government found out about it, they took the technology and they killed him. That's a fact. I'm not making that up. You can go look that up. That's something that really happened. So this thing called the Looking Glass Project is real, and so that makes sense. You can go all the way back to the Sumerians. The Sumerians definitely had the technology to create a round mirror that you could sit in the middle of and look at. And apparently, according to him, this whistleblower said that he was hired to come in and do some IT work to connect a computer up to this thing so that they could punch in various timeline possibilities. What happens if we start a war? What happens if we introduce a plague? What happens if we, attack this country? What happens if we enact this law? And they look at all the different possible timelines that'll come out of that, and they've been doing that for centuries in order to know how to manipulate society so that they can take more and more control. Now, if you look back on just our recent wars, every single war from the 20th century onward has been about global dominance. and it's been a boon for the industrial sector. It happens every time you want to make money. There's an old punk rock song by Fear. Let's start a war. We all need the money. And that's, wars have always, the Second World War got us out of the Depression because all of a sudden, all of this money was being poured into the technology sector, and it created jobs. In fact, the reason why, I lived in Los Angeles, and, there's a very prominent African American community in South Central Los Angeles. Well, guess what? That community wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for the need for labor to come in and create bombs and planes. They took a bunch of people from the South, happened to be African Americans, and they came and they provided housing for them so that they could work in the factories to create bombs and blah, blah, blah. Of course, the war goes away. What do you have left? A big concentration of people who don't have a lot of money, and you create this ghetto, and then now you have, that's, if you want to celebrate where rap came from, you can thank World War II. That it's always been about money, and war always does those two things. It creates a lower class of people who are dependent upon the government in order to survive. I'm not talking race. Doesn't matter whether you're, what race you are. That's what happens when you have war. And then there are people who make a shitload of money off of it. And so it makes sense that if you have this cozy rev mirror, that you can look into potential timelines. And if we start World War II, and again, World War II, you look at all of it, and there's all these weird sort of strange 9/11 things. Same thing with the Vietnam War. There were false flag operations that start these wars. 9/11, when you look at the recording, I remember seeing it and believing it. The recording of Osama bin Laden talking in Arabic, supposedly about starting, the 9/11, and you find out that it was translated wrong. And when people who know Arabic actually listen to that, go, that's not what he said. He wasn't saying that at all. You've been lied to this whole time so that the people in power can make money. So what the whistleblower said is that at some point after 2012, the people using these cozy rev mirrors could not escape the inevitable possibility of an ascension event, an immediate ascension event that completely destroyed their power. So from their perspective, if on their radar the date September 23rd, 2023 keeps coming up, that's when there's this ascension, then if they own Hollywood, then of course they're gonna create fear in you, and they're gonna have Hollywood be flooded with these life-ending scenarios that happen on that date, because for them it is the end of the world. For them it's the end of their power. It's the thing that they're the most afraid of. So I have no idea if it's true or not, but I find it very coincidental, and I find it to be very interesting. Is something going to happen? I can't escape the feeling that something very powerful. I've been getting messages from my ET friends who have been saying to me, be prepared, something's coming, and they're very excited, they're very happy about it, and telling me telling me great things that are going to happen in my life as a result, and the world is going to change, and just, basically just sit back and eat some popcorn and watch what happens. There's big stuff coming, and just be ready. I've been told that. Just be ready. Something's coming. They won't tell me what, because they say we don't want to scare you, but I think it might be it might be the ascension event. It could also be a false flag. It could also be a date that the elites have chosen in order to create something. World War III, aliens landing, who knows what. Some people have been talking about there's going to be an attack on the internet, that the internet will go down for 10 days, and then they'll wipe the internet clean of everything they don't like. And that's interesting, because not too long ago I came across some information that the United States government has sent out to all hospitals and prisons that they need to stock up and have at least 10 days worth of food. And at first they made it a suggestion, and then they came down and they made it a requirement. They said, to hospitals and prisons, you have to have 10 days worth of supplies and food. So maybe they're going to cut off the internet. Maybe it's all nonsense. I don't know. I'm not trying to promote anything. I just find all this stuff interesting. So what else do we have here? We are currently going through a solar storm. As I said, I think it's starting to back off. I think yesterday was the peak of it. I definitely felt some higher than normal electromagnetic fields for me last night. Hollywood Elites Exposed. So you can't go onto YouTube without tripping over some video about Oprah Winfrey being exposed as, friends with Epstein and her school in South Africa actually being a front for, child trafficking and things like that. And more people are being outed in Hollywood. This new film, The Sound of Freedom, I wish I had gotten it together. I was going to have it together. I was going to read to you. Maybe I can just go ahead and do that. Let's just see. That the mainstream media is aligning Sound of Freedom with QAnon. And so they're not trying to bag the film. So look here, NPR, National Public Radio. Let me just read this for you. So National Public Radio, this is July 19th, 2023. QAnon supporters are promoting Sound of Freedom. Here's why. Here's the thing. I grew up in the era of Walter Cronkite. I grew up in the era of, even though looking back on it, that media was still controlled. But the whole point of journalism is that you present facts without any bias, without any agenda, without any interpretation. If you wanted an interpretation, back when we had newspapers, you would flip to the back of the newspaper, and at the back of the newspaper, there was something called an editorial page. And the editorial page would have a journalist who had a specific political bent. And you knew you were reading their opinion, their interpretation from their political perspective. And there would be a Democratic and there would be a Republican. And whenever there was anything that came on, if somebody came on to the news or anywhere and gave some kind of political opinion, by law you had to have the opposing opinion there. The idea was that news organizations didn't have an opinion. That was the whole point. NPR, National Public Radio, it's been around forever. It's been around since I was a kid, and it presented itself as, we just present the news. We don't have an opinion. So here is this movie, Sound of Freedom. The point of it is that this is based on a real life person who went to South America and discovered this huge worldwide child trafficking ring that, billions and billions and billions of dollars spent on this. And it's, very rich people doing really horrible things with kids. And that's what the movie's about. There's a lot of people associated with it who have a religious bent. They're born-again Christians. But as I understand it, the movie is not, I haven't seen it, but as I understand it, the movie is not a religious movie. So the title of this, QAnon supporters are promoting Sound of Freedom. Right off the bat, you are being manipulated into having an emotional reaction. QAnon, what? Although QAnon is not mentioned in the movie and nothing about QAnon is in the movie. But right off the bat, national public radio is trying to talk you out of seeing this movie. So let's go on. It says, QAnon supporters are promoting Sound of Freedom. Here's why. Sound of Freedom, this is the first sentence. Sound of Freedom, a Christian thriller. Right on, they don't even, before they even tell you what it's about, they're going to tell you it's a Christian movie. It's not a Christian movie. I know, I'm not a fan of Christianity in the slightest. This is not a Christian movie. Christians love it. The guy in it is a Christian. Jim Caviezel's a Christian. Mel Gibson's a Christian. Good for them. If they were making a movie about Jesus, I might have some problems with it on a personal level. But if that happens to be their religion and they're making a movie about freeing kids from being enslaved and tortured and all kinds of things, who gives a crap with their religion? They might as well be Buddhist or Muslim or who cares? But the first word after they name the movie Sound of Freedom, a Christian, right off the bat. So NPR is appealing to what? Agnostic, atheist, left-wing people. So right off the bat, they want to address their readers and make them have a strong negative emotional reaction without even knowing anything about the movie. Sound of Freedom, a Christian thriller about former federal agent rescuing children from exploitation, is the summer's surprise box office hit. Made for now they're going to now what they're going to do now is they're going to try and make you think that the people who made this movie are doing it just to make money. I want you to listen to the manipulation here. Made for about $15 million, it earned almost as much on its release day as the final installment of Indiana Jones and has raked in more than $85 million since opening earlier this month. That's actually gone up to over $100 million now. So right off the bat, you are put in a position of QAnon, Christian. What? It was a cheap movie and they're making a lot of money, so they're just in it for the money, which I find very interestingly ironic, since the whole. I mean, I was an actor for a while. Of course, I didn't make it in the movies, but I became very familiar very early on that it was a business. It had nothing to do with art. It was about making money. So here they are trying to make these people look bad for trying to make money having a Hollywood movie. And do they ever say anything about the value of what the film is about? Goes on to say, but the movie is also being criticized as a vehicle for conspiracy theories. The movie is being criticized as. You are being manipulated to believe that that's what's going on. Oh, you mean that QAnon movie? And this is, they used to give, I used to give Donald Trump a hard time because he would say, many people believe, many people are saying. So the first thing they come in is they say, well, many people are saying this is a vehicle for conspiracy theories. And of course, they don't back that up. It's all manipulation. The movie is also being criticized as a vehicle for conspiracy theories and misleading depictions of human trafficking, landing it in the middle of the country's politically polarized culture wars. That's not what's happening. That's what they want you to believe, but that's not what's happening. Anybody who's looked at it, their eyes have been opened and they've been appalled and disgusted and frightened and saddened. It hasn't been polarizing people in the slightest, not in that way. Unless, as it turns out, you've got a lot of pedophiles who are attacking this. A lot of pedophiles are actually creating some of these comments and things like that. We've got this really interesting thing where we have people in the world called pedophiles who are interested, and if they take action on it, end up doing abusive things to minors. And now it is not politically correct to call anybody pedophile. You have to call them a minor attracted person, which makes you think, I'm heterosexual, so I'm attracted to women. I can't help that. It's built into my the way I'm wired. So we're now led to believe that people are wired to be attracted to minors. A minor attracted person. This is very frightening stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to read any more because it just continues to do that. It doesn't say anything about, the validity of the claims, the historicity of it. Doesn't talk about anything. They talk about, how now Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel are shouldering up to Donald Trump. Ooh, that's bad. It's just very sad to see journalism destroyed to this level. And it's so disgusting to see something that is a very, very serious, unbelievably serious issue being politicized. And the ironic thing is they're politicizing it with this kind of reporting. And of course, the hypocrisy is that they are accusing the filmmakers of politicizing things when they themselves are doing it. And it's disgusting. But it's gotten to this point. This is, the world has become this caricature. Since I became aware in September of 2021 what was really going on with the pandemic, when I became aware of that and my attachment to the narrative completely shattered, it was very traumatic for me. And that was, and just knowing all the things I can't talk about here on this channel were going on was so unbelievably, traumatizing and awakening. And I remember even then saying, I'm living in some weird Hollywood movie. This is even beyond what Hollywood could have come up with in terms of a crazy time in the world. And then, a few months later, I end up having personal interactions with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, and then not only my idea of the world, but my idea of reality, my idea of myself, my idea of what it means to be a human, my idea of third dimensional physics completely explodes. And then more and more of this stuff comes to the surface, now to the point where I'm talking about adrenochrome. This is crazy. This world has become a caricature of the most unbelievable science fiction, fantasy, conspiracy thriller you could come up with. You couldn't have made up anything crazier than what's going on right now. It's an unbelievable world, and it's time for it to go. It's time for, this experiment is done. It is time to create a new world, which is what I talk about in Interdimensional Revolution. By the way, if any of you have read my books, please, it'll take you 30 seconds. Go on to Amazon and actually write a review. My book, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. The only person that took the time to actually write a review is some troll who's been stalking my channel and trying to badmouth me. I don't know how many times I've had to block this guy. So please, guys, come on. You say you love me, you say you love my channel, but you can't take 30 seconds to actually type a review on the books that you've read. Please do that. This information needs to get out. If the first thing people see is somebody bad-mouthing me and calling me all kinds of horrible names, they're less likely to get the information in their hands. So, do me a favor and go do that if you've read the books. If you haven't, go read them and then, leave an honest review. All right. So, nearby star going supernova. I don't know what the likelihood of that is, but the star Betelgeuse, 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 Betelgeuse is starting to go supernova. The question is, how long will it take? And we don't know. Scientists don't know. But if it were to actually, it's very far away. So whatever's we're seeing happened a long time ago. But if it does end up going supernova, that would be a very interesting thing. It would be a huge, it would look kind of like this picture here, and it would be in our night sky, and it would be as bright as the full moon. And that would, I don't know how long that would last. It would last for a while. That would be something interesting. And I would love, my hope is that when the event comes, as you know, we are in the midst of a solar wave event. People call it the solar flash. But I was told by my ET friends before I even knew what the solar flash was that there was going to be an event where there would be an increase in solar radiation, which would have within it higher spiritual frequencies of love, they said. That waves of love from the sun would hit the earth, and the series of these waves would result in a shifting of the awareness. They didn't tell me this, but my hope is that it will culminate in a final wave, which will be a huge flash that we'll see in the sky. I know that something is going to happen in the sky that everybody's going to see, and they will think that God is coming to earth, whatever their religion is, and that will quickly evolve into a more evolved understanding. And I think in that moment, the flash itself will give everybody the experience of their religion, at the same time destroying the confines of religion, and we will move into what reality is, which is, it's not a religion. We happen to live in a conscious universe. There's a ladder of consciousness that we in the third dimension don't have direct access to. We can only access it through meditation. But there will come a point after this flash where, just walking around in your conscious awareness, you will be aware that we live in this multiverse where you have access to power and divinity. We will know that there's really very little difference between us and deities. We will be able to communicate directly with deities the same way you call somebody up on a phone or knock on their door and talk to them. And we will have an awareness that there are physical beings like ourselves and physical beings from other planets that live in different dimensions. They have a higher degree of energy, and we will have access to that, and we will see that there is this ladder of vibration, spiritual energy vibration, which is really love and joy. We will have access to that, and we won't have to wonder, what is out there? What kind of beings are out there? Do gods exist? Is there an afterlife? You will have access. You will be able to communicate with souls that you've known that have passed away. You'll be able to talk to them. At the very least, in meditation, you can communicate with them. You will have no feeling of separation between you and the other levels of conscious existence in the universe. So that is my hope. My hope is that when the flash comes, that's what's going to happen. I keep being told that the world is going to shift, that there's going to be a brand new world. I don't know how that happens. The thought of it is a little frightening to me. The world ends and we jump across a bridge to another one. I don't know how it works. I'm told not to worry about it. It will make sense when it happens. But we are definitely seeing a lot of things happen. I mean, the world has never been as crazy as it is now. Unbelievable. Everybody around the world is trying to get their mind around what is going on. So, yeah, and as I said before, the sad part is that, one of the things that's happening, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook groups having to do with CE5 or connecting to extraterrestrials, because it's conflated with a lot of ufologists. So a ufologist is somebody who goes around trying to study and, study things on crashed UFOs and, all that kind of stuff. And they haven't actually experienced any interaction with ET, so all they do is they get into whatever hype is given to them. And of course, now that we know that the military has a military program with its own anti-grav spacecraft and anti-grav lasers and faster than the speed of light technologies, now that we know that, we know that they don't want us to know, because if you find out, if the public were to find out that these programs existed, then there would be no need for petroleum, there would be no need for electricity, there'd be no need for coal, no need for natural gas, no need to continuously give yourself over and give your money to trillionaire corporations that literally rule your life. If the electric grid went down, you'd be helpless. If the internet went down, you'd be helpless. If the petroleum industry decided to stop, pumping gas into your cars, everything would come to a standstill. All of the world, in fact, all the wars that are being fought over access to these resources that are used to control you with money. Banks, banks do have all their power because of all of these resources. And if you were to become aware that you didn't need those in order to power your home and to power your vehicles, grow your food, all kinds of things, heal yourself, the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the petroleum industry, the electricity grids, all of that, governments and corporations would have nothing to control you with. And so that's what this is all about. Even though there happens to be a huge spiritual element to all of it, and of course the mindset is important, the thing that's driving it is the ability to keep creating these manufactured economies that are based on this symbolic currency we call money. In other words, it doesn't exist. Money has never existed. Even when you go back to the first expressions of money, gold and silver. Gold and silver don't have any more value than any other rocks, especially if you're a primitive person. They're a symbol. And if you can't eat gold, you can't eat silver, you can't wipe your ass with it very well, you can't make clothes out of it, you can't marry it, it doesn't do anything for you. You can't even make weapons out of it. It's too soft, it's too brittle. So from the very beginning, the way that you have an empire is if you turn it into a social credit system, and that's what money is. This person has more gold than somebody else. Nowadays, it's not even connected to gold. It's printed. It's not even printed anymore. It's just typed into a computer. You've got digital currency. It literally means that the money that people are living and dying for physically doesn't exist. If those servers on which those ones and zeros have all of your digital currency were to go down, then all money would disappear. Money doesn't exist. And it's the way that they control you. Let me give you a history of how, a very brief, hopefully I've written about it in one of my books somewhere, but let me give you a very brief history on how empires came into being. We can start with the Greek Empire. So what happened is the Greeks, like everybody else, if you go back far enough in time, they were farmers, hunter-gatherers, etc., etc. They lived in direct connection to their environment. They had their sheep, they had their goats, and they had their crops, and you had to live in reality with the seasons and all of that. Well, what starts to happen, I guess we'll use forget the Greeks for a second because they did the same thing. But let me give you a hypothetical hunter-gatherer community. So all of a sudden, this hunter-gatherer community starts to learn how to farm and have grains. So they start to farm grains, and instead of going and gathering grains, they start to farm it. And so pretty soon they have far more grain than they can consume. And so they have this surplus of grain. Now all of the hunter-gatherers around them are like, wow, man, those guys got a ton of food. We're busting our ass every day hunting and gathering. Let's just go take some of their grains. And so people with all the grains say, oh crap, we've got to now take all of our grains, and they put them in silos. Then they put a fence around the silos, and they put houses around the silos inside of the fences, and then they post warriors around the fences to keep people from coming in and stealing their grain. So then what ends up happening is, now that all of their people are soldiers, trying to protect the grain, they have nobody to farm it. So what do? The soldiers go out and they attack and they enslave the surrounding tribes people, and they make them go to work and become the farmers, and they make more and more and more grain, and each time they have more grain, they send out more people, and they, before they know it, they have this empire. And then now you don't have this barter economy where if you want something, I give you a skin and you give me a goat, or you build me a porch and I give you a cow. Now you have this economy where you could do it with grain, but then eventually that becomes a problem because you need the grain to stay where it is so other people won't steal it. So you start having this social credit system, and bingo, money appears. And you have people giving away silver and gold and bronze as a symbol of cows and grain and other stuff. And in fact, to this day in the English language, we have the word fee, which comes from the word fehu, which means cow, because our pre-Roman Germanic ancestors didn't have money. When they wanted something, they gave somebody a cow, a fehu. You gave a fee for a service. So even today, when you charge a fee, you're charging a cow. So in other words, we've gone from this symbolic thing, and people used to make that a big deal, like, well, when the economy was, gold-based, still the same thing. It's just this empty, meaningless symbol. And people are living and dying over it. And it really is we talk about China having some kind of a social credit score system. We already have a credit score system. It's called a credit score. And your social clout is about how much debt you can manage. If you manage the right amount of debt, you're a good person. If you don't have any debt, they don't want you, which sounds strange. If you have too much debt, they don't want you. You have to have just the right amount of debt. Why? Because banks make money off of the interest of your debt. That's why you can't get credit until you have it. This all has to go away. And this is the thing that is driving all of it, and this is the reason why our deep state has a secret space force. We've already mastered everything that you've seen in Star Trek and Star Wars, and you don't know about it, because if you knew about it, they wouldn't be able to use this fake credit system and debt to control you. And that's why you're going to war. All right. So let's see, have I gotten through everything I wanted to talk about here? For those of you who are tired of listening to me rant and rave, the whole point of this is that we are going through an ascension event. It has already happened. I have seen what I was told on December 2nd of 2022. ETs came to me and said it has officially begun. The solar wave event starts today, and we did. We got hit with a big solar storm, and I felt it, and I shifted up to another dimensional level during all that. And every time that there's been a major solar storm, like a major one, the ETs get very excited and they say we've shifted up another level. Now, I immediately feel it. But what's interesting is that what happens after every time we have a major solar storm hit the Earth is that there's a lag time of a few weeks to a few months before some major revelation happens in the world. And I'm seeing this. What I'm seeing on the internet, one of the most interesting ones, is that this whole idea of racism as an idea is falling apart. And I'm watching the African American community communicate and educate themselves on history over the fact that, hey, you know what? Actually, while there were African descended slaves in the United States, there were twice as many white slaves in Africa. Oh my God, white people didn't invent slavery. And then the whole barrier of the victim mentality and the separation starts to fall apart. And that's just one example. People are waking up to all kinds of awarenesses, and they're interacting and communicating with each other and educating each other about how we're all the same. You know, I might have different color eyes than you. You might be from another country. You might have a different religion. None of that shit matters. The color of your skin, none of that shit matters. It's never mattered. And it's always been about, and then the lesson again is the same thing. It's not about race, it's about control. Oh, having slaves was about control. It's never been about race. And then we wake up to see each other as human beings. That's just one example. The awareness of people coming to see how they're being devalued and controlled in all kinds of different ways, and awakening to their own power. People awakening to spiritual awarenesses within themselves. Awakening, you know, people are, I'm getting more and more emails where people said, I got a dream about doing energy work. Where do I start? I mean, that's been happening more and more. People are getting told directly by the universe how to shift their energy so that they can be prepared for this shift that's happening. More and more people are having dreams about the event, about this ascension event. And I am seeing a direct correlation. Whenever we have a solar storm hit the Earth, weeks to months later, you see something shift, and you see more and more things being revealed. You know, that Oprah Winfrey, I don't know, maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but Oprah Winfrey, you know, having something to do with weird conspiracies going on inside of Hollywood, that the date September 23rd, 2023 shows up in, you know, all of the crazy sci-fi movies where the end of the world happens. I mean, it just all seems to, you find out that ETs exist, and you find out that the government has been running around creating, has been abducting people, pretending to be aliens for 60 years. More and more of this stuff is happening, and pretty soon, you know, it's going to get to a point where there's nothing left to hold on to, and we'll be forced to move into a new world. And the only question is, will we wake up before the powers that be launch some other crazy scheme to destroy and control you? That's really the question. So that's what this channel is about. And again, I haven't gotten into it, but if you are willing to do the work to shift your energy up, then the shift will be a pleasant one. If you're not willing to do the work and you're not willing to shift your energy up, then it's going to be traumatic. I can tell you that. This shift for me has been very traumatic. I went from here to here, you know, within a few weeks and months, and it was very challenging. So I recommend that you do the work. I have it here available on the channel. There's no shortage of free stuff. Go onto the channel page, look for the playlists, and do any of the exercises, the Awakening the Immortals, the free interdimensional guided meditation courses. Please do that. You know, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the rest of consciousness to do that. If you're serious about being guided how to achieve the most powerful state possible with practices that have been shown over thousands of years to actually give people the ability to shift up, whether you want to call it the golden dragon body or the rainbow body, or you want, you know, Taoists called it becoming a perfected immortal, you know, achieving enlightenment, whatever word you want to use. There are people who have spent decades or lifetimes doing these energy disciplines that allowed them to shift to higher dimensional levels while still in their physical body. And this practice here at the 90-day challenge, I have taken many of these practices and put them together and made them user-friendly. If you follow the directions, I guarantee you will have a result. Go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. My books, Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. Those books, very important, you can find on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. And please, if you have read them or if you're going to read them, please actually type in a review so that the trolls are not the only people typing reviews on my books. And there it is. If you're here, I don't do open questions anymore. If you are going to leave a question, please tell me, what practice of mine are you doing? Are you subscribed to the 90-day challenge? Are you doing any of the meditations, the Hool breath, things like that? If you're doing any of those things, tell me that before you ask a question. If you're not actually involved in the practices, then instead of asking me a question, you're better off watching the videos and doing the work, because 99% of your questions I answer. I've got books out there. I've already answered it in those books. I answer it in the videos. And of course, it gets answered when you subscribe to the 90-day challenge. You learn about all this stuff. But if you're one of my students and you're doing this and you have a question, I will consider looking at it, as long as it's respectful. And let's see, where are we at here? What do we got here? I don't see any questions here. Cats and Me, I think you've told me what it is that you're doing. You say, do you know or know someone that can help give us tips on how to build a cozy rev mirror? Well, Cats and Me, I mean, nothing personal, but I gave you the information. You can go look it up. To be honest, how would I have any more knowledge about that than you could find out on the internet? Again, don't be lazy. Don't ask me to do your work for you. And again, that's not really a question about what I teach. You know, that's really where you're going to get the best answer from me. What else? Nothing else. Okay, that's it. Thanks, guys, for showing up. I hope that was interesting for you. I'm continuing to create the series, the 12 steps to shift to 5D. I'm going to upload another video today, which will be the most important step, which is step 4. And I encourage you all to watch those videos from the beginning, starting with step 1. All right, that's it. I wish you all the best, and I will see you guys all next time. Take care.